Welcome in GPS to God. We are glad that you are back with us. Daniel Sanders, Stefano Patterson, Ryan Gotro, and today we brought out the big guns, the heavy hitters, the hammer, Miss Amanda Edson.
I don't know about all that, but glad to be here.
We are very glad you are here to bring a great closing argument, a final word, whatever kind of little phrase you want to throw on that. She is going to end the book of Job with us and bring some truth. She might go back and tell us, all the mistakes we made in the
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of them.
Just about to say.
There's a bunch of them, probably.
This is not limited just to the end of this. If anything that we have said wrong, questions that you can answer, please fire away.
We're going to have 3 more episodes just with
Yes, please fire away.
so.
Correct.
Let's go back
us.
to chapter 1.
Correct us. Please correct us. We need direction.
It's been good.
But we are so happy that she is here with us. The strikeout, what's the word? Streak. The strikeout streak is over. We have come up with a hit, and it's a grand slam. I'll just say that right there.
Deal.
We don't need that pin anymore. But we're glad you're here. gpstogod.com is the website. You can email us, and we would love for you to do that. Reach out to us, mailroom@gpstogod.com. Find us on Instagram, all those cool kind of things. And now, without further ado,
You want
Ryan
the
has
clock?
wanted me to turn the clock on, so let's do that. Amanda, glad you're here. How much did you cram? I kind of know the answer to this, but how much did you cram before you came here today?
I tried to go back and listen to as many episodes as I could. There have been a lot. Job is a big book.
It
and
is.
y'all have had a lot of episodes.
It is.
This is number 9.
I have to be honest that I have not listened to all of them
How
yet.
could you?
That's
How
fine.
could
But-
you?
Join the club. I did it
I
too.
did try to listen to the most recent, make sure I could catch up on what was going on, and then review Job and the things I've read about Job, and make sure I had something ready to go for tonight.
Amanda has gotten a world premiere sneak peek at episode number 8. Has not been released yet, but she got an advance copy just so she could hear what we said wrong last week.
So hold on one second. So I know this is old news for us, but the last time you were here, this was a lot different. So what do you think
Yes,
about the new
this is
setup?
nice.
To you?
It's new equipment. I feel
Yeah.
like I don't really know where everything's supposed to go.
Nice, yeah.
Nice table.
I say last time she was
A
sitting
lot of
like over there in that
change
area
from-
somewhere.
We had a metal
Round
table,
We had a metal
Dude.
table and that's it.
Dude.
a
pretty
black
much.
tablecloth. and
Did.
Lots
This-
of different headphones and microphones. And,
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Did.
It was the same wood on the wall, arranged in
Was.
a different configuration.
Yep. Yeah.
But, yeah, very, very different. I mean, all the swag on the wall, all that's new. It's good.
There's a lot more going on in the room now.
There is, yeah. Behind the cameras were lots of stuff. Lights and whistles and bells and oh my,
All the stuff.
all the stuff. All right, Job, we're doing it. This is the final episode. It's been fun. It's changed a little bit since the beginning, the first episode of the series, which is, that's fine. I think it's gotten better. Some hard
Absolutely.
conversations, and took us a while to get started, but man,
Yeah.
it has been very good. I hope you've gone on this journey with us, and let's cap it on off.
Let's do it.
We are starting tonight in chapter 38, and God comes in. Here he comes, and he is coming with some presents. Not vengeance, really, but he showing off a little bit, in my opinion. We'll get to that. We finished, chapter 37 finished, with Elihu. Elihu came in, gave his take on Job and the 3 friends and everybody. We had a lot of questions that episode. Go back and listen to it. But I have another question. Elihu leaves. He finishes speaking. Then God comes in. How much time went by?
Doesn't say.
Well, it doesn't say. That's it's been getting me the whole study here.
Some time references would be nice.
Time
did he say his last word and then the whirlwind came, or was this down the road? Or?
Yeah.
How did he show up? Like, because it
Yeah.
just says he starts talking.
How did
He
God
answered-
show up?
Yeah, he just says he answered Job.
Well,
How did
no.
I mean, did a cloud of smoke?
Well,
then he
in
went-
a whirlwind.
The whirlwind.
Oh.
Whirlwind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So chapter 38, verse number 1, Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. So I've got questions about that too. Fano, he's got his hand up. Go ahead.
I do have questions about that. So, is it Elihu?
Sounds
Is that how
right.
you would say it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's either Elihu or Elihu, right? That's who the
We
two-
started
those are
off
two-
that
those
way,
are
and
the
then
debate.
I took a. I don't even know what I said
Well,
last
considering he
episode.
shows up
It
out of
took it.
nowhere, I like Elihu.
Elihu.
Who is this guy, and where did
Gotcha.
you come from?
So,
Go that way.
so the Lord answered Job.
Correct.
Was Job sitting down? Though, with like, how did they know who God was talking to? I guess.
Yeah.
Did he say Job, and then go? How if he's in a whirlwind, he couldn't have. It wasn't like a human, like eye to eye, like he could like talk. Like how did they know he was talking to Job? I know that sounds maybe like a dumb question.
No,
but
that's not a dumb question. That's a question I did not have. But,
Okay.
I don't have an answer for that.
Right.
But I want to.
How did the whirlwind direct towards Job to
I
where?
think Job was one of the only ones that was actually questioning God,
Okay.
really, and a lot of
Okay.
what he was saying. Like, I think the
Yeah.
friends were kind of answering Job.
Right.
Right.
But
Okay.
Job was the one that really was crying out to God
I gotcha.
and kind of
Okay.
presenting his case and,
I gotcha.
and saying he wanted an audience with God to
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
argue his case.
And then he got one. Oh,
That's
my.
just
yeah.
my guess, though.
Yeah, no,
That's a good I
no,
like that.
That's
That's
a
a
great-
that's
great
a good
guess.
answer.
Because the other
like
we
was
wanna call
Job
it guess.
sitting
That was
down when
fantastic.
Elihu was for
Right.
these past 4 chapters or whatever? Was Job like
Yeah, because the 3 friends, they were saying, Job, you must have done something wrong.
Right.
Because God wouldn't punish
Exactly.
you if you did.
right?
Right.
So they were going after
Right.
Job. Job
I
was
guess
questioning God.
just where people are whenever
Oh, yeah.
somebody's speaking. I guess
So I've got
that's
that-
what are they all huddled up? Is like was Job in the center and they're surrounding Job?
So one of my
So seating
questions that I have
arrangements.
is the same thing. Who else was around to see this or hear this when
Yeah.
this whirlwind, God in the
Right.
whirlwind shows up?
Right,
Who else was around to see
Right.
it, hear the conversation?
Right.
Did they hear it,
right.
or did they just see?
They have to be close because then God references.
God does
the
speak
other,
to them later,
He speaks
yeah.
to them
Right.
later. So did they come up? Are they there the whole time?
Right. And I don't know. God speaking to Job in this. Do other people hear this? Something that came to my mind was Saul when he was on the road to Damascus. Jesus shows up.
Mhm.
The people that were with him just saw bright light,
Right,
but they did not hear what was being said.
right,
So is this one of those kind of deals, or can
That's-
everybody
Right.
hear
That's-
what?
right.
Man,
That's,
so many questions.
there
Does it
are.
really make sense, or
Yeah.
not make sense? Does it really matter to the
Right,
story?
right. I hate to.
Probably not.
I hate to
but
pick through it, but since we are
Yeah, it's
picking through it, it's
Curiosity.
irrelevant.
You need
I
the
guess,
details.
in the grand
Need the
scheme of
details.
thing. I mean, who really cares? So I feel dumb
I think it
even
makes
asking
the Bible
it.
more real too. I mean, because we're
Yeah,
thinking about
it's true.
settings, like where were they sitting? This was a
It's
real
true.
thing that happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can just read it as like, oh, it's the Bible story of
Right.
Job, instead of like, no, it was real people
Right.
that were
Yeah.
sitting in the dirt or
Right.
wherever they were,
yeah.
and God
Yeah.
speaks out of a tornado.
Yeah,
Well, I think we said last week, like we imagined as we've gone through this, that they were just in Job's backyard or something when these 3 guys showed up, because we only hear about they came to visit Job,
right,
Right.
and that's all we hear about. But
right,
Elihu showed up; he was listening. He said,
right,
so then it's, well, are they in a public place, and who's around them? And Job had referenced, people spit at me, they
right,
smack me in the face, all this kind of stuff in earlier chapters too. So
Right.
is that a time reference of, these conversations go on for a long time and he's going to town to get whatever he needs,
Yeah.
kind of stuff? Or are they having this conversation in public
Right.
places?
Makes you think it has to be in daytime, I guess, for it to be a whirlwind. Well, I guess it could still be at night.
But you wouldn't see it.
Wouldn't see it though,
necessarily.
so
Yeah.
so it's at least during the day.
I would,
yes.
yeah. I mean,
I would assume.
we typically assume all these conversations are in the daytime, 'cause
Right.
that's just our normal schedule.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess it could be it.
Well, at nighttime they're
Dusk.
sleeping, right? You never know.
I mean, there's no electricity.
Right,
I mean, they kind
exactly.
of live by the
Yeah.
sun
Exactly.
Yeah.
back then. But
Yeah.
yeah, how much time went by? That's been a common theme.
It has.
Let's talk a little bit here about verse 2, chapter 38, because God comes in swinging. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? That's kind of something that Elihu brought up as well. One of the things he said to Job, that you're questioning without knowledge. And then verse number 3, This is God speaking. Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. I trembled a little bit when I heard that. It's like, ooh. I don't know the tone of God, how he's saying that. His ways obviously higher than our ways, but I read that like I would read that if I was coming up. If Fano challenged me on something, and for a long time, all right, I'm here now. Let's go. I'm going to show you all the things you've been asking about. Yeah. Get ready.
Yeah, just a little attitude. In
yeah.
the voice,
Yeah.
It's very direct. I mean, he's not holding anything back.
No.
But he
No filter.
He does approach Job because he comes to Job in the whirlwind and answers. Right. So that shows a little bit of compassion from God, that
for sure
Job's been crying out, and so God comes to him. Job doesn't have to go seek him out, but he's pretty direct in how he answers.
Yes. Yeah. So dress for action like a man. Another one of the notes in the footnotes in my Bible, instead of dress for action, it says gird up your loins.
I see it. I see that.
Which makes it sound like we're about to tumble. We're about to go at it. You better be ready.
It's about to go down.
Yeah. Oh, that was when I read. Man, that is. I mean, because we think the three of us and Amanda, very sweet, very one of my favorite people. I think she's a little competitive too in some areas, so she definitely relates. But dress for action. I'm going to question you. You make it known. Like we would go to a sports analogy. Somebody like a Michael Jordan or something. Oh, you've been talking about me. All right, I'm about to show you. Here we go.
I'm sure that Job did not think that God was going to, or maybe he wanted to. I mean, did he? I don't think he thought that God would come and directly answer him. Or maybe he did. Maybe he did. I mean, I know he was crying out and asking and everything, but once God got there and was directly answering and talking to him, I don't know if Job was really expecting that. Maybe. I don't know.
I think probably up to this point, I think in this moment it's
right.
Yeah.
But before that, Job, I think, wanted it not because he was, I'm innocent. I'll prove my case to you. I'll show you. Yeah. And now God shows up, and it's that instant regret.
Yeah.
Plus, it's God.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, Job gets reminded here just how far off he was in his argument. Verse number 4, chapter 38. Where were you? This is God speaking. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. I mean, it doesn't slack off any.
No.
Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, all the sons of glory, or all the sons of God, rather, shouted for joy.
Got a sarcasm?
Maybe not. Daniel read it with a little sarcasm. But
right.
I mean, that's the tone I hear.
Absolutely.
Reading those sentences.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just truth.
Yeah.
God is just saying truth.
Always.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It sounds...
It's hard not to read it that way, though, almost. I mean, for me, I think.
Yeah.
From a human side, it would be vengeful if I was saying this.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's vengeful. God is not being vengeful here. Right. I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know from Daniel, if I was doing this and I knew 100% I was in the right, I'm trying to make you feel bad.
Right.
I had this underlined. Verse 7, all the sons of God shouted for joy. Y'all know who that is? I'm guessing it's all the angels.
That's what I took it as, but
I don't have an I didn't research that. That's
no.
I feel like that's usually how angels are referenced in the Old Testament, as sons of God. So I would assume when God created the world and all the angels rejoice that it was created.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chapter 38 continues. God continues with examples of creating. Where was Job while he was creating? Setting the limits for the sea and the waves and all this kind of stuff. Verse number 18. Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all of this. I mean, there's just Job in this whole thing is, I want an audience. I want an arbiter to hear my case with God and put us on trial together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God shuts down the trial in the first chapter here. Took 18 verses of here's this, this, and this. Where have you been?
Well, and for us, I mean, one of the great things about these parts of the chapters of Job is we get insight into God and how he sees himself, how he presented himself to Job, and everything that he said about what he's done and what he has power over. And so all of those things are really kind of spelled out from God directly in these parts of Job.
Yeah. He continues on, God does. Chapter 19, I'm going to read 3 verses here. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And where is the place of darkness, that you may take it to its territory, that you may discern the path to its home? You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Again, the sarcasm of, you were there too. Remember when we established light and dark and where they were going to stay? Where was that? You were there, right?
Right.
I could be completely off. I have no idea, but that's just what it sounds. I mean, I don't know how else to read.
But just those words, it doesn't. It's hard to think that's like. I'm sure he's saying it in the most sincere way as possible. But at the same time, I'm like, there's no way to be to say that sincere. Like, where you were right there next to me, right? Which it just sounds crazy.
I also wonder something maybe insignificant, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
What does the voice of God sound like? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, just does that matter? No. But just the curiosity of what does the voice of God sound like? Does he have a country accent? Is it like James Earl Jones? Is it, what's it?
It's always like in like movies and stuff. It always has like an echo. I always wonder, does it come with like an automatic like echo, kind of like it does like in the...
Has automatic reverb.
Yeah.
Just set up
I don't. But yeah, it also, I mean, I guess the way that God goes through these verses is kind of the offense, I guess, he took from the things that Job was saying, I guess. Maybe not offense. Maybe that's not the right word.
I like that word, though.
Not because God can't be,
I think...
Not offended. That's not the right word.
I think our actions...
Just how serious maybe God obviously took the words that Job has been like saying throughout this whole book.
I think our actions can probably offend God, I would think.
Yeah.
Because there's verses about grieving the Holy Spirit and not wanting to grieve God with some of our actions.
Right.
So.
And I mean, God has been angry at people before.
Right.
And, giving them judgment in the moment or consequences in the moment of their actions. So.
Right. Just how direct he's speaking to Job and the examples that he's giving. And just.
Yeah. I mean, he continued the examples. Have you entered the storehouses of snow? What is the way to the place where light is distributed? Has the rain a father? From whose womb did the ice come forth? Like, he just continues throughout the whole chapter of giving examples. And this is, I don't know what the right phrase is, but to us, this stuff almost doesn't seem real, right? So the storehouse of snow, or, from whose womb did the ice come from, that kind of stuff. Like, it just happens for us. But God, all that's planned out. He has planned all that out. So him giving that example is kind of showing, I think, in an earthly dialect, my ways are bigger than your ways.
Yeah.
Here's an example you can understand. Because some examples he could give, we wouldn't even understand or be able to comprehend.
Right.
But here he's like, I've got snow stored up, and I know when I'm going to distribute it, where it's going to go. I mean, just that, the bigness of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 or verse 36. Man, I went the other way with it that time.
35 too. No, you're fine. 35, and I read that several times. And
verse 35. Can you send forth lightnings that they may go and say to you, here we are? I'm over here.
I read that several times and chuckled.
I got Ryan with it.
Yeah,
that was great.
The inflection. See, did God have the inflection like that, or was
Right.
he the monotone,
Right. Yeah.
like megaphone
Yeah.
voice of here's the examples. Verse 36, I'm just putting numbers on them now. Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or given understanding to the mind? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or given understanding to the mind? So that's God saying, Job, all these questions you have, all this knowledge, everything you have, where do you think all that came from? You
Right.
didn't come up with any of this on your own.
Okay,
You're
that's it,
questioning things that I've given you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just how many different things God's in control of. Like
Yeah.
verses 31 through 33, he's talking about the constellations and the universe. And then, verse 36 is I've put wisdom in your very mind.
Yeah.
So from the constellations to everything that you think, I'm in control of all that.
This was finishing out chapter 38, verse 39. Can you hunt prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions? Who provides for the raven its prey when its young ones cry out to God for help and wander about for lack of food? So again, being in control, God's control. We think animals, the natural world, just kind of happenstance, and he'll find some food. A lion will eventually find some food or whatever. But God is telling Joe, I'm planning all that out.
Right.
Yep.
How much more am I going to plan for you?
Mm-hmm.
And you're questioning me.
Yep.
But this was what caught me on that verse 41. The young raven, when its young ones cry out to God. So I think that's something. To me, I read that as even the animals speak to me.
Right, yeah.
The animals are crying out to me.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that, Job? Huh? What you think it's just you, but the animals cry out to me too. I created them as well.
Right.
And as their provision, too. Like they're
Yes.
crying out for what they need.
Right.
Yeah.
To God as their provision.
Right.
We think, usually baby birds are crying out to the mama bird.
Right.
But really, that's all ultimately going to God because he's the one that's providing.
And I don't think I've ever thought of that before.
Yeah.
Which is, that's mind blowing a little bit. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was pretty smart myself. I don't know if I questioned God quite like Job has, but thought I was pretty smart.
Hope not. Unless you're gonna get that whirlwind.
Hey, I hope it shows up on video. Really, though, I'm not trying to dress like a man and get ready for action in the way of God there, to be honest. Whew. Before we move on to chapter 39, we ignored the M&Ms on the table. I forgot about. I was so eager to get to
Zach.
Amanda.
Sorry, Zach.
Zach threw some
He's an
snacks
afterthought.
in
He's an
here.
afterthought when we have
Those are
Amanda
open.
with us.
These are
He's an
open. So
afterthought.
he didn't like those, apparently, right? He just brought them in.
He was sampling as he dropped off.
He
There
did
you
say
go.
he was sampling.
Let's see, what are these?
He brought a variety pack
pretzel
here.
ones.
Pretzel M&Ms,
Yeah, those are good.
caramel or caramel,
How do
depending
you
on
say?
what.
How do you say? I mean, you can't say them both ways. You got to give me what? How do you say it?
I go Tennessee country and say caramel.
You say caramel.
Caramel.
I'm a caramel.
I think I say caramel too.
That's why I hang out with you uppity people. You class me up a little bit.
And when I really think about it, it's caramel.
And good old peanut
So you're right.
M&Ms. So we are not sponsored by M&Ms,
Nope.
but these
Can
are
be. We
these are
can be.
delicious, and we can be sponsored by M&Ms. We would love for you to reach out. Mailroom at gpstogod.com.
I was trying to see. What are they? Isn't it Mars? Or is that just the candy bars? That is the overall.
Mars
you're
would be
right.
Yeah,
a parent,
Mars.
parent
Yeah,
company.
Mars.
Yeah.
Mars. Send us an email.
I'll take some of these.
Go ahead. Yeah. back off the mic when you're chomping.
Sorry.
It's like,
It's hard to hear Fano speak sometimes because that deep bassy voice, but I guarantee he starts chomping on peanut M&Ms. We'd hear every
Pick up every
last.
chomp.
Yeah.
Let's blame Zach.
Oh,
Blame Zach.
we are blaming Zach. Just like we blamed Ty when he brought the warheads.
Set
in.
him out here if you don't want us
Yeah.
to eat them.
Oh, he knew what was happening when he
I know
did
he
it.
did. I
He
know how
knew.
he rolls.
Chapter
I'll sit back.
39. Don't forget to scoot back up when you want to talk there. We act like this is our first. This is episode like, what is this?
bring it to you.
76. 76, something like that, I think.
I was thinking 75, but
I think it's 76. We've been doing this for a while, and we still don't know what we're doing. Chapter 39, God knows what he's doing, and he keeps giving it to Job right here. Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Do you observe the calving of the does? Can you number the months that they fulfill? Going back into the detailed planning, nothing is left up to chance with God. Just continuing the thought from the raven and the baby ravens crying out to God for food.
yeah.
God is planning the lives of all the animals. And we'll get to a big one here in a few minutes. Got some questions on that one. Verse 13, the wings of the ostrich. I have a question on this one.
There we go.
The wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but are they the pinions and plumage of love? I guess God asked the question, and it brought on other questions. To me, you all tell me what you think on this one. God is kind of saying, you don't know what the animals are designed for. Like, I designed the ostrich. I designed his feathers and his plumage.
Right.
What's it designed for? Is it love or is it something else?
Right.
What's he doing with this?
The example of this animal was a little different than the other ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And everything that he talks about here.
Yeah.
To me, it goes into the being created with a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I created the ostrich and his feathers. I know what I created them for. What do you think? Was it for love? Kind of like question. Not only, he's kind of moved to not only did I create it, I created with a purpose. So I'm showing you kind of my thought process here, Job, and I'm taking it even another step further. It's not that I just created to create. I created with purpose.
Right.
Well, and that God's thinking about things that we wouldn't even begin to start to think about.
Yeah.
Right.
He's thought through every detail with purpose, with intention, even down to the feathers on an ostrich, and that they have a purpose and that we would not even start to think about.
I mean, when you think animals, probably an ostrich is probably the last thing that you would probably think. I mean, in the Bible, like lions, and, it talks about ravens and ox, but an ostrich is something pretty obscure that you probably wouldn't really think about. That wouldn't be
Wouldn't
your
make
first.
your top 10.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't make my top 10 of animals.
I don't know if it'd make my top 20.
I mean, yeah, maybe you would, Daniel.
Well, the only reason I think of ostrich
It's a great burger.
is because we've eaten ostrich before.
That we have. I saw where your mom was going.
That came from Zach, too. Zach bought
That made the
for
top
us
5 for
because
me.
We had a conversation about it, and Zach
did.
sent us ostrich burgers.
How he rolls.
He's a giver. We
He
love
is.
Zach.
Yes, he's a fun time.
You have to be careful what you mention, though, because it can just show up.
Yes. God showed up to Job. He continues. This is verse 19. Did you give the horse his might? Did you clothe his neck with a mane? He continues on, giving examples. Verse 26. Is it by your understanding that the hawk soars and spreads his wings toward the south? We'll move on. Chapter 40.
Hey,
There we go.
good job.
One for whatever.
40.
Shall. Yeah, you're probably correct.
He figured it out in chapter 40. We're good now. Let's keep on going.
God continues to speak here. We're going to get into question mode in a few short verses. But verse number 2, shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God, let him answer it. So throwing it back on Job right there.
Yeah.
I've given you all these examples.
Yeah.
Are you going to continue to find fault with me? Let's hear it.
Yeah.
And Job answers.
He does.
I don't know if I'd be brave enough or able to speak at this point.
You hear him take like a big old gulp. Like,
Even with
all right, let's talk.
even with God saying, "Answer me, Daniel."
I'll wait.
I'm gonna go hide behind this rock
It's
over
like
here
it's
real
like
quick.
the second or third time he's on.
Oh, yeah.
There's been several questions directed towards you. You would just sit and just.
I think you
I probably would too. I mean,
You probably know, like, as a a kid, if your parents getting onto you, or maybe even as an adult,
Just
like
think of that.
if a boss or something's getting onto you, they can ask you questions, and like, oh, it's not time. Like, I just need to be quiet and listen. But then they'll get to a point and they'll ask you a question, and you just know, all right, it's my turn to talk. I think that's kind of what's happened here. The scolding is taking a pause. I want to hear what you're thinking right now.
Joe's probably hoping it's a rhetorical question, right?
Shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God. So that's kind of almost a past tense thing. Like, you've been arguing with me. Go ahead and answer now.
Right.
Here I am.
Yeah. Job does speak. I would be stuttering Stanley right here.
Yeah.
Job answered the Lord and said, Behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer twice, but I will proceed no further.
That's a hard thing. I mean, to me, I'd almost be like, "What? Why are you coming at me? Like, they're the ones that are over here saying worse things, you know?"
I mean, Job seems like a pretty, he's self-aware.
Yeah.
So, he's never really tried to pass blame on his three friends. He's told them they're wrong, and what you're accusing me of is wrong, but he's never tried to pass blame on them.
Right.
I think he has a healthy fear of God, maybe misplaced at times, the way he questioned God sometimes. But
Well, and when we're going through grief, I mean, a lot of times being in grief ministry, you can there's words for the wind. Like I think it even talks about it earlier in Job, that sometimes your words are for the wind. And so you're crying out to God and you're saying kind of whatever you're thinking because what you're having to walk through is so heavy. And so I almost feel like some of Job's answer here is, okay, I'm realizing now some of the things that I said, that maybe I was just speaking out of my pain, but now that you've come and you're kind of addressing it, I've realized some of what I've said, so I'm just going to be quiet now and listen.
There comes a point where you're in a situation where like Amanda said, I know I'm wrong. I can't say anything.
Yeah.
I just got to take it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So that's probably
which he was trying, but God didn't really like that answer. Didn't seem like.
In the whole book of Job, that's probably the shortest response Job's ever had.
I was like, he's been really long-winded all of a sudden. You got nothing to say?
Pretty vocal.
I mean, three short verses right there is all he gets out.
It's a different audience this time.
Yeah. Chapter 40, verse 6.
Different target group.
Yeah.
God continues. And it says again that the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. He tells him, dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Will you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me that you may be right? Comes back at him again Job said nothing in those 3 verses other than I'm going to sit here and be quiet. I'm sorry I spoke up. But God comes back again like, this ain't over, man. Stay dressed.
What are you talking about?
I'm just going to read the next few verses here, starting in chapter 10. This is God speaking. Adorn yourself with majesty and dignity. Clothe yourself with glory and splendor. Pour out the overflowings of your anger and look on everyone who is proud and abase him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low, and tread down the wicked where they stand. Hide them all in the dust together. Bind their faces in the world below. Then will I acknowledge to you that your own right hand can save you. Pretty big challenge dropped by God right there to Job.
Yes.
Adorn yourself. You do these things, and then I'll acknowledge you.
Right.
Pretty much you're nothing to me until you can prove yourself, which is impossible. But our next animal talk right here. I have some questions. Verse number 15, chapter 40. Behold, Behemoth. And I went back and did a little quick Google search for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
I've got a pronunciation right here. So the Hebrew word of this animal was Behemoth. Behemoth. There you go.
Impressive.
I don't know if I said that right or not, but
Nice.
It was close.
Behemoth.
I don't know.
But Behemoth
Yeah.
And God goes on to describe this animal. I'm going to read this up. Behold, Behemoth, which I made as I made you. That stood out to me as well. But he goes on to describe it. He eats grass like an ox, the power of his muscles in his belly, tail stiff like a cedar, all these things. He goes on to describe it, and the bones are tubes of bronze, limbs like bars of iron, all this stuff. Verse number 19. We're going to come back to this one, but I'm going to read it now. He is the first of the works of God. All right, so let's back it up here. This animal, Behemoth, I have some questions. What is it? What do you guys think? Or did you have thoughts on this one? I've got some thoughts.
It's a vegetarian.
Okay.
It's big. Very big. I would think. It's powerful.
Well, I cheated. I went straight
mean,
to the what my Bible goes to, and it just says it's a large animal. There's not an exact identity.
Well, it tells us that.
I know that. That's what I'm saying. So that's why I was like, I don't know. I know it tells us. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
There's no extra footnote that says what it actually is.
Exactly.
So when I first read this, a thought that popped in my head, which I didn't see any other commentaries come at it from this angle, but I was like, is this a vision? Like, is God showing Job a vision of an animal he created? And that kind of ties in to verse 19 when he says, he, Behemoth, is the first of the works of God. So this is something I created at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if he was showing him, like, is this a vision? Is he letting him see this? Look at this animal. I mean, you're already talking to a whirlwind, which is weird to us. Is he kind of, getting a picture of it in his mind or in the whirlwind or something of, look at this animal. Like, I've already described all the other creation things I've done, other animals, but I've got animals that I've created that you've never seen before.
So Behemoth was not in Job's time. That's what you're saying.
Potentially, I don't know.
No, that's what you're.
Yeah.
That's what you're. Okay.
Yeah, that this was not an animal Job would have seen.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's animals in the ocean we haven't seen. I mean, that's not a crazy sentence, I don't think. But I didn't know if this was a vision of something past, or is it an animal Job recognized and God was just describing it in detail again of, I put thought into his bones and his legs and the muscles of his belly, his tail, what he eat. Like, that struck me. Is it a vision or is it a real animal that Job had seen? Or a real animal that Job had not seen?
It takes a little wind out of the sails. But so the amplified version of the Bible, which I like to look at because it'll take a verse and kind of expand on it and what the Hebrew meant and the Greek and all of that. So this says, although Behemoth cannot be identified with certainty, the biblical description seems most like the hippopotamus.
That is also...
And in ancient times, that may have been even more formidable than today. In Job's time, the hippopotamus was the largest known creature.
Interesting.
So...
Interesting.
I've seen arguments, doing a little research on it myself. There were arguments for a hippo, maybe a elephant, but the elephant was quickly dismissed by most people. Hippo was very common.
Yeah.
And it was, comparisons made of like the tail of a hippo is kind of stiff. Of course, it has short, strong legs. Its stomach muscles are very rigid and strong because of, going through rocks and all the stuff in the rivers. And it does talk about going through the rivers or standing up to the turbulent. Verse 23, if the river is turbulent, he, Behemoth, is not frightened. He is confident, though Jordan rushes against his mouth. So hippo was a very common one. Dinosaur, maybe. There were some people that said maybe he's talking about a dinosaur, with a big tail and all this stuff. And that kind of was not a popular, hippo is the most popular animal today that we know of that people kind of relate to. But it was also, we don't really know.
Yeah.
Nobody could give a definite answer. And there were arguments against the hippo. Well, it's not a hippo because of this and that.
Things, yeah.
But hippo, elephant, dinosaur maybe, but who knows? Man, I had a lot of questions on that one. A lot of questions. Verse 24, still talking about the behemoth. Can one take him by his eyes or pierce his nose with a snare? That part makes it seem like an animal Job would have recognized. Like, you know this animal. Can you grab it by the eyes or grab it by the nose and with a snare?
Right.
Again, if one of our kids was to draw a picture of an animal, an imaginary animal, and to say, Daddy, you think you could trap this or what? Like, you think you could grab it by the eyes? I mean, you could still ask those questions even with something that's you're not familiar with.
Right.
I had a lot of questions on that one. As we move on to chapter 41, we hear a character come back to us. This is still God talking. Can you draw out Leviathan? That was the Fano pronunciation. When we had that many chapters ago.
Take that as, I mean, it's
can you draw out?
Usually wrong.
I don't know if it's right. It sounded good when you said it. Can you?
I think there was a movie called Leviathan, like back in the 90s. Maybe
it's not ringing a bell.
Ryan,
I was too young.
Ryan's not going to.
I might not have been born yet.
I think there was a movie called Leviathan. Or maybe it wasn't pronounced that way.
What year were you born?
I was born in 89.
Oh my goodness.
You talking about what is it? Labyrinth? No, not Labyrinth.
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth. There we go.
No.
That's the first thing that popped in my head with
Look this up. Why not?
what is his name?
All right. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to continue with the book of Job here. Leviathan, chapter 41. And this goes back to the behemoth discussion a little bit because one of the commentaries I read said, so chapter 41, God is talking about Leviathan with Job. Can you draw him out with a fish hook or press his tongue down with the cord? Can you put a rope in his nose? So this large sea creature, sea monster, God is describing in Leviathan. One of the commentaries I read said that Leviathan and Behemoth are two examples of like imaginary creatures, like chaos monsters. And so this is not a physical animal, but more of a understood chaos kind of thing that Job would have understood in this time. So I thought that was interesting too.
Well, and then if you go the route of them being actual animals of some kind, you've got like the largest land animal, and this would be like the largest sea creature. So it's kind of like if you can't battle these, if you couldn't capture these, what makes you think that you could stand up to me who created them?
Yeah.
Which I know we get to later in verse 10 and 11.
Yep.
Yeah. This was interesting. Lots of examples here describing Leviathan. Verse number 3. Will he make many pleas to you? Will Leviathan make many pleas to you? Will he speak to you soft words? Again, creation, even animals, talking to God. Mm-hmm. Verse number 8. Lay your hands on him. Remember the battle. You will not do it again. I mean, Job is in the middle of a battle right now with God that I don't think he wants to be doing.
Yeah.
No.
The first time, much less do it again.
No.
Behold, verse number 9, the hope of a man is false. He is laid low even at the sight of him, the sight of Leviathan. No one is so fierce that he dares to stir him up. Who then is he who can stand before me? Just what Amanda said. I created him. He cries out to me and speaks softly, and you can't even touch him.
Yeah.
Did you find the movie? No.
1989.
Ryan was right. He wasn't born yet.
I wasn't born. Well, what month?
It's like a sci-fi movie. Spelled the same way. He starts describing them and like it shoots flames out of his mouth, like fire out of his mouth. Is that what your Bible said? Like verse 19?
Yeah.
Concerning Leviathan?
Out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of the fire leap forth. Yeah.
It's like a big old dragon snake.
He continues. I mean, that's a lot of verses of, just talk about sci-fi. I mean, it almost seems sci-fi to us.
Yeah.
But God just showing again, going to Job, you've been speaking without knowledge. Here's things that are true and exist that you don't even know about, that you can't touch, that you can't come close to.
Well, in verse 10 and 11, which I know we read second part of 10, who then is he that can stand before me? And then verse 11, who has given to me that I should repay him? Whatever is under the whole heaven is mine. So it's just, again, kind of another direct way that he's coming at Job, going, I don't owe you an explanation, really, for anything that you're asking me. I'm speaking with you, but if you can't even conquer these two animals that I made, everything on the earth is mine. I don't owe you necessarily anything, which is hard for us to hear. We don't think of God, I don't think as much that way today. A lot more focus on his love and his grace and his mercy and all those things. But this is a reminder that God is God and everything under the whole earth is his.
And he doesn't owe us, but he chooses to give to us.
Even if you are as good of a man Job was.
Right.
I mean,
chapter 42, the last one.
Oh,
I don't know if we thought we would ever make it, but we have. A lot goes on in this chapter. Chapter 42, then Job answered the Lord and said, I know you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Job is quoting God right there. Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you will make it known to me. He's quoting God again in that verse. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. So he answered God, brought back up some of the questions God had asked and gave an answer of,
right.
Yeah, you're right. I know nothing. I'm sorry.
it's strange how he words that because, Job was holy, was, however you want to say that, but then to me, that kind of lesson is, in verse 5, I had heard reports about you. It's just a strange way of saying that he knew God, or maybe I'm looking at that wrong, but
even Jesus talked about it later of, you all have seen me, so it's easy for you to believe in me because you see me.
right.
How much more so is the faith of those who only have heard about me, and they believe.
Yeah.
So it's kind of speaking to that a little bit is the way I took it. That I heard of you, but now that I see you right here in front of me in this whirlwind, it makes it easy to believe how great you are.
Yeah.
And it makes me ashamed of myself that I didn't believe just about hearing you. I had to see you.
Yeah.
Well, and so much of the book of Job is about kind of correcting a wrong view of God. So back in their day, they thought if you do right, then you're blessed. And if you do wrong, then you're cursed. And that was basically the friends' whole argument throughout the whole book. But what happens at the end of Job is that Job, and we'll get to later that his fortunes are restored, and a lot of people kind of focus on that, but he actually gets a new view of God.
Yeah.
So he gets a correct view of God, and he learns, that sometimes good people do suffer, and God has reasons why things happen. So to me, that I'd heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. It's like he's gotten a new perspective, a new intimacy, a new relationship with God through his suffering that he didn't have beforehand.
Prior to.
So I think there's some literal of I'd heard of you and now I'm actually seeing you in the whirlwind, but there's also I had this understanding of you and how you operate, but now, I've got this whole different view.
Right. Makes sense.
So
after Job speaks, the Lord comes back, verse number 7, and speaks again. This is a little different. This caught my attention.
But that part, though, right there where he kind of changes the setting, where he goes from I'm talking to Job to now I'm talking to you 4, right? I could imagine what they're doing in the background going, yeah, I'm glad he's talking to him. And then, it's me now? Oh, no.
Well, that's goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Where is this conversation taking place? Who sees it? Who hears it?
Yeah, exactly.
And about the bright light, can they see the whirlwind? Can Eliphaz see the whirlwind if he didn't before?
It's an abrupt
or is he
change.
just hearing it?
Yeah, when he's talking to Job, are they even present?
Right.
Yeah, it's an abrupt change for sure.
Well, and before we go to the answers to the friends, one of the things that I think is important to know, there's a lot in verses 1 through 6 to kind of unpack, especially for those that are walking through grief, because Job is a book that's used a lot in grief ministry and just kind of looking at God's purposes for that. And so, there is a time, verse 6, that Job does repent and says he despises what he said and basically takes it back and he repents. But I think it's important to know that he's not repenting because he had cried out to God in his suffering, that really he's repenting, from how I understand it, for like the wrong view that he had of God and for accusing God of wrongdoing. So I think there's a difference in when we're going through hard times, God wants us to cry out. It's called lament, and it's biblical, and it's something that he invites us to do and to be very honest in what we're feeling and to come to him in that. But as we're grieving, we can also do that incorrectly and hold some wrong views of God and accuse God of things that are not true. And so when he brings those things to our attention, we are called to repent of those things. But I think there's a difference in crying out to God in your suffering and that he invites us to do that versus, maybe having some wrong views that have to be fixed. So, I don't think Job is repenting for crying out in his pain. I think he's repenting for now he has realized that he thought about God in an incorrect way, and he's shifting back from that, and has basically questioned and demanded answers from God that, weren't necessarily his to demand, because as we saw in earlier verses, God doesn't necessarily owe us answers sometimes for those things.
And that goes back to what we talked about before. Job had been holy up to the point of him being afflicted with losing family, losing what he owned, his possessions, his physical ailments. That's when he began to question God in a wrong way. We talked about, maybe last episode we talked about that of, chapter 1, it says Job did not sin in this. He was holy, did not sin in the things he said. But then from that point forward is where he had a big downfall there.
But we also see in verse 7, God says to the friends, you've not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has.
Right.
And so even in that, and I don't know if that's referencing back some other things that he said or just what he has said in verses 1 through 6 when Job kind of corrects course.
Right.
But God still says that Job has spoken right about him, and the friends did not.
Yeah.
Verse 7, after the Lord had spoken these things to Job, he said to Eliphaz, my anger burns against you and against your two friends, for you have not spoken to me what is right, as my servant Job has. That's a pretty terrifying statement. My anger burns against you, coming from God. That's pretty terrifying. Now, therefore, take 7 bulls and 7 rams and go. This is, I don't know if I fully understand it. I mean, I understand it, but this caught my attention. Take 7 bulls, 7 rams, go to my servant Job and offer up a burnt offering for yourselves. And my servant Job shall pray for you, for I will accept his prayer, not to deal with you according to your folly. So we've been talking about the conflict that Job and these 3 guys have been having with each other. 3-on-1, Job, you've been wrong, all this stuff. And now they have to go to Job and say, hey, man, will you pray for us? Will you, take this offering and pray to God for us, be an intermediary? That was that'd be hard. I mean, it seems like it'd be hard to do, right? To humble yourself and do that. But then for Job to turn around and do it, it's like, I got you guys. We're good.
Yeah.
It's been a long, drawn-out fight this part seems fast right here. Yeah. God saying this. There still has to be some kind of time that passes because they have to go get these 7 bulls and 7 rams. So there's still some kind of element of time, but it seems like if God is telling me to do this, I'm going to do this pretty quick, right? Yeah. But to have that healing process kind of just go immediately into effect.
Well, and that it took humility on all of their parts because the friends had to go to Job, but then Job also had to be willing to pray to God on their behalf after all the things that they had just spent, who knows how long, years,
Right.
speaking about him.
Also shows just God's forgiveness after repenting, because after all the things that Job said, but he repented. Once he repented, God said for the friends to go to Job, get Job to say a prayer on their behalf, and just because they're saying it to Job, everything is good with them and God.
Yeah.
That's and that's what you touched on, Amanda, because he says that sentence again right after that,
Yeah.
for you have not spoken
Yeah.
the truth about me as my servant Job has. So that's
He says it twice. At the
over the
beginning
course
and
of
the end, yeah.
over the course of 2 verses. He says the same sentence twice. So
He's God is kind of anointing Job at that point as I don't know if priest is the right word, but an intermediary between the people and God. So a priest would offer sacrifices for the people, and that was the go-between. So he's kind of anointing Job right there in the same fashion of, you're the go-between for those 3 guys and me.
and just think about those 3, what they're thinking. Like if they were like sitting there the whole time after God's like going through this whole thing with Job and talking about creation and, getting him the answer, what are they thinking? Like sitting there and they're like, are we about to die? Is he about to just a fire come down and just consume us, or what? Just the fear that they probably had at that moment.
Yeah. Well, they've already been rebuked by Elihu.
Right.
A little bit, and this is,
and then right.
I mean,
just what was going through their heads right there that they think that they were going to get out of there.
That's like maybe an older brother or sister getting like, you shouldn't do that. You know that's wrong.
Right.
And then mom or dad come home and they really get you.
Right.
You're like, oh.
Yeah.
So wrapping up right there, verse 9, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar went and did what the Lord had told them, and the Lord accepted Job's prayer. So just like you had said, he's the go-between. God put the faith in Job that he was going to pray for the friends in the correct way, and God was going to take that.
Yeah.
That's a little hard as a somebody with an ego, like, God, how come I can't pray to you like that?
Right.
If I was one of these 3 guys.
Right.
Well, why do I have to go to Job? How come I can't just sacrifice this to you and you let me pray to you?
Right.
Again, that's questioning God in the wrong way, which is what they were getting rebuked for. But I don't know if they had that thought or not, or if they were just happy to be in God's good graces and have an escape plan, basically.
Just like Amanda said, and just how awkward that is going back to Job. Can you pray for us?
Yeah.
I mean, after all these, after we
just knew that you were in the wrong, but it was us.
After us calling you essentially dumb and, doing something you haven't done for, 20-something chapters.
You took that serious, Joe? Oh, man, I was kidding, man. I thought you knew.
You failed the test.
Oh, man.
Joe, I thought we were good, man. Yeah, let's... I just happen to have 7 rams and 7 bulls with me. Would you mind? Was that 7 each? I wonder if that was 7 each. Now, therefore, take 7 rams and 7 bulls and go offer a burnt offering for yourself. I'm bringing 7 of each myself. Those other guys might not know how to count. I'm going to go ahead and bring 7. But, I don't know if that was each or all together for all 3 of them, 7. More questions. And then, like Amanda said, verse number 10, the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he had prayed for his friends. And the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then, this part's a little funny to me. I got Jerry Springer show right here. Then came to Job, all his brothers and sisters, and all who had known him before, and ate bread with him in his house, and they showed him sympathy and comforted him for all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. And each gave him a piece of money and a gold ring of gold. before I get to the scheming brothers and sisters, so a piece of money right here, the caseta that we talked about way back in part number 1 of this, that's the figure of money that no one knows today really what that is worth, but that was referenced just a couple other places early on in the Bible, which is why they think the book of Job is very old. Hard to know exactly when it was written, but that gives a reference point of when that was the time that the book of Job took place because of that money right there.
Too bad Ty's not here to that
I-
part right there confronted for all the evil that the Lord has brought onto him, and he'd be like, "See, I told."
We're gonna have to do
That'd be the whole debate all over again.
a separate episode because I've got arguments for and against that very thing. I mean, I've got notes here that we're not going to get to today. That might be a separate episode. Or it will be a different episode. But, so, all right, let's get back to these brothers and sisters and friends as we wrap this thing up here. Where have they been? They're gone. Job's down low. He lost everything he had. And they ran for the hills. And now he's back, had his his fortune restored to even more than what he had before. And, oh, hey, man, I'll come hang out with you again. That's how I read that at first.
Yeah.
It does seem
Like they're only showing up when he's at his high point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Probably they might have been under the impression of like these other 3 that came to him that he had done something
bad. Yeah.
done something wrong, and they didn't want to associate with him, which, I mean, they're fair weather friends, I guess, but they didn't want to get caught up in it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if they really think that, I mean, we do the same thing, right? If somebody's doing something we don't agree with, whatever it is, we're not going to go with them and support them in that.
Right.
We're going to keep our distance. Now, I don't think that's really what, I think it's probably what Fano just said, because they come and, they bring him money and a ring of gold, all this stuff. But when I first read that, I was like, man, these guys are fair weather people. They're just down
Probably,
in your luck.
I mean, fear. I mean, everything got taken from them.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
kids died and everything.
I don't want to stay in any of his houses.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's the way I was.
And then the Lord blessed, this is verse 12, blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, 1,000 female donkeys. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters. And it names the 3 daughters, which is a little different, because normally, the lineage goes through the males. But it names his 3 daughters, and in all the land, there were no women as beautiful as Job's daughters, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. So 10 other children, just like he had before. Verse 16, Job lived 140 years. After this, Job lived 140 years. So lived, greatest man in the East, had it all taken away, gets restored, and lives 140
Did it
years.
ever say how old he was during that time, like during this time when it happened?
Did not.
I didn't think, though.
Did not. He was old enough to have 10 kids, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But lived 140 years after this and saw his sons and his sons' sons for 4 generations.
Wow.
Job died an old man and full of days. I did a little bit of math on this last part here. 4 generations. So you have Job and then son, 4 generations.
Yep.
The math checks out. If they were 30 years old each, that's 120 years.
Yeah.
When you get to those 4 generations, Job's got 20 years to spare. So math checks out on that one.
Nice.
I don't know how old they were, but if they were 30 years old when they had their kids, it still works out. Job could have seen the 4th generation to 20 years old.
Yeah.
In my 30-year example. Don't take those numbers to be anything other than proving a theory here. They are not true numbers.
Good disclaimer.
Bam. The words of Job have ended.
Like
Job.
that, it's done.
All 42 chapters.
All 42 chapters.
It was a road.
What's 42 divided by 9? That's like 5 chapters almost on average.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We'll take that.
It was good. It was good. It's great. There's a lot of stuff in there that I had heard of Job, and thought I knew about Job, but just going verse by verse was good. It was good for me. Hopefully, it was good for everybody else. But
I love jumping and getting the full detail of what really happened.
Good. In different perspectives, not just
exactly.
our three, just Amanda's and Zach's.
Well, I was going to say, it's been fun having other people, like every episode having different people in.
It's good.
Definitely been good conversation. We don't have the answers to all the questions we have, but you know what? We never will till we get to heaven.
Absolutely.
And then I don't even know then. Who knows? We might not even think about these same things. But
probably be irrelevant once we get there.
Oh, yeah. As long as, just like these three knuckleheads, I get the final approval from God. Be like, look, you weren't doing what's right, but here's the steps. Come on in. I'll be all right. Amanda, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
For having me.
I'm very sorry that we have waited so long to have you back. That's my bad. I should have asked you. I mean, you had to wait like 70 episodes. I apologize. Yeah. We won't wait so long before we have you back again.
It's worth the wait. I love the book of Job and everything it teaches us. So
absolutely.
Yes.
And I don't know if she's going to like me sharing this, but Amanda had a little beef with the way Zach called her out an episode or two ago.
I thought she was going to speak up like early in the episode and say something about it.
I decided that I was going to do what Job's friends should have done
No.
and just sit silently.
I wrote it. That's
right.
good. That's
I'm going
good.
to learn my lesson from
We don't see this very often with him, okay? We need to hear it.
This is real life growth right here. Take this example Amanda's laying down, everybody.
Indeed.
Because she is living it out. She would not challenge people like we would. She's learned. Well, Miss Amanda is going to send us home with a Bible verse today.
So a lot of the book of Job is hard for us to understand, but a lot of things God also does not owe us an explanation, and He's revealed just enough for us for what we need to know. So Deuteronomy 29:29 says, "The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all of the words of the law."
There it is. Cannot think of a better way to wrap up the book of Job study.
So good. So good.
Very good. We hope that you all have enjoyed going along this study with us, that you've gotten something out of it like we have, gone a little deeper or gone a lot deeper. In my own case, have not studied the book of Job in this detail at all. So good stuff. We will do this again with another book. We've already been discussing it. So
Fano said Psalms.
That will not be the next one we do.
Just kidding.
That
He did
will
not.
be the next one. It will be a shorter book, the next one we do.
Yeah. Ron was swinging for the fences whenever he offered up Job.
We jumped straight in the deep end on this one, but it was very good.
I'll be sick for a few weeks if we do that one.
If there's a book of the Bible you'd like us to go through, send it to us. Mailroom@gpstoguide.com. Send it to us on Instagram or through the website. But we have one in mind. Do we want to tease it or no?
No.
No? All right.
No, he said no.
We're just going to leave that hanging. You don't know what it is.
Not even a pause. Just
Leave
no.
it hanging, man.
We got one in the pipeline. Got a couple new people coming on here shortly. Next week, no idea what we're bringing to you, but we'll bring something. We're glad you're here. You know we love you. God loves you more. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to GPS to God. Make sure you leave a rating or review on whichever app you happen to use. Also find us on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to our channel.